So we're into November. We're in the fall. The weather's changed. It's great, but people want to know what's happening with the real estate market. Okay, where are the trends happening? So today we're going to do that in our monthly market update, where we're going to go over all the numbers, the trends. That way you guys know what's going on. That way you can have the information to make the best decision possible for you here in Phoenix. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Mark Cannon, local realtor here in the Phoenix area with my home group real estate and owner of the Benchmark Real Estate team. As always, guys, this is a podcast format, so you might hear me mess up. You might hear me go, blah, whatever, because I'm just here to be real with you. I'm here to be a real person, transparent with you. I'm not here to convince you of anything, just trying to give you information so that way you can make the best decision possible, because I'm all about relationships and making sure that my clients are taken care of. So if you're watching this and you're not one of my clients, would love to talk with you, but we'll get to that later. So today we're doing our monthly market update. So we're going to start where we always start, inventory. Where do we sit? So if you haven't watched any of my other videos, a normal market here in Phoenix, historically, 25,000 homes is kind of our normal, right? We haven't seen that in a long time because obviously COVID threw that all for a loop, but it's one of those that we're sitting just about 25,400. Now we've been hovering around 25,000, not a bad thing, especially for buyers. It's not a bad thing because it's a buyer's market right now because we don't have demand. So inventory wise, we have normal levels of inventory, but no demand. So it's a buyer's market. So it's like, okay, and I'll show you some other stats on that. We've got some other graphs here coming up that I'll show you on that, just to show you what that looks like. But inventory wise, we're still hovering right around 25,000. So that's a good thing, at least for sellers it is. And then interest rate wise, I'll show you this graph on the screen. So as I always say, the interest rate doesn't follow the Fed. I know everybody hears about the Fed cuts. Interest rates follow the 10-year Treasury, so that's what you should be watching. But typically, and I do videos on this, whenever you see the Fed say they're lowering their rate, mortgage interest rates jump. They go up. And that's what you're seeing on this screen, where you're seeing we went down to like 6.12, and now we've jumped back up to 6.37. Now, I've heard rumors that maybe the Fed's not going to cut anymore this year, and if that happens, maybe mortgage interest rates continue to fall, and that would be a good thing for mortgage interest rates to fall. We need them to. So I've thought that mortgage interest rates would be down near 6% by the end of the year, and I still think that's probably the case. So hopefully that continues to happen. We'll see. But as far as the market moving, it's just not moving a whole lot. I don't have the graph here, but inflation's about the same. So inflation hasn't changed much. That's why I didn't put it up on the screen. But let's talk through some of the actual data that I have here for you. So I'll show you. So Armlist, which is our like MLS that does all the stats, produces some infographics I'll show you. And so I'm going to show you some of these, because what I'm really looking at is supply and demand, because all real estate is supply and demand. Because when you have high supply and low demand, you have a buyer's market. When you have low supply and high demand, like we did in COVID, you have a seller's market. When those things level out, you have a balanced market. So what we're seeing in these stats here, and you'll see here, this is the supply. Supply is very high. Now, historically speaking, it's not. We're not up 35,000 homes. But for how much supply and demand we have, supply is very high right now. So we're seeing supply is high. You can see the trends here. Now, when you look at demand is lower. So we're just over 20%, it's probably about 25%. And that's low sales. And when you look, there are other graphs I could show you if you're really interested. There are other graphs through Cromford I could show you where we are lower in sales than we were, let's say 2019, 2018. COVID years, I don't take that into account because that was abnormal. But it's one of those that we are lower amount of sales. And that's what we're looking at, is how many homes are sold every month. And we're just lower than we normally are because we just don't have the demand because prices are still high. And then this last one I'm going to show you is so they call it absorption rate. And what that's showing you is when you're combining both of those, what kind of a market are we in? You see on the graph there, so seller's market, buyer's market, and we're pretty heavily into a buyer's market. Now, again, this is all of Maricopa County. So this is not just individual cities. If you do this on individual cities, you'll see, like, let's say like Chandler, Paradise Valley, Fountain Hills, they're probably more balanced, leaning a little sellers, but more balanced market than buyers. Whereas if you looked in like Buckeye, if you look in Queen Creek, they're heavy buyer's market. So overall, though, for Maricopa County, we're in a buyer's market. So that's the kind of market we're in. Now let's talk about the Cromford data real quick. Now, if you're not familiar with Cromford, This is something I pay for. This is a company here in Arizona or they're in Phoenix that they just run data on Phoenix and on Maricopa County. So it's one of those that when you look at this graph, remember 100 or 90 to 110 is balanced market. Anything above 110 is sellers. Anything below 90 is buyers market. Now, I usually say these numbers are a little skewed, a little off, but it's one of those that it gives you a good idea because like you can see on here, Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley, Chandler, Scottsdale, still really good markets. And I think some of those are leaning sellers, if not balanced. The rest of these to me are either balanced or buyers markets. So it's one of those that, Phoenix, Mesa, Avondale, Cave Creek, depends on where you are in those cities. You might be in a balanced or buyer's market. And then everything, Glendale, Peoria, Goodyear, Santan, like everything below, Goodyear is definitely heavy buyer's market where you can negotiate a good amount. Like I've done deals in Buckeye where I've got a new roof and a new AC and like you're able to get things. So it's not a bad time. If you're able to buy, it's not a bad time because the stats show us that you can negotiate a good amount. Where people got in trouble was, in COVID was people would wait and then they didn't have the leverage and now you're bidding against other people and you just couldn't negotiate. If you can afford to buy right now, the people who normally can afford to buy are people with high paying jobs or people have saved up a good amount of money to put a lot down. Like a lot of the buyers I'm working with are putting, 10% or more down. And that's where they're able to have more buying power because they've saved up that money. And I know that's not everybody, but there are people that are able to buy. Again, I don't look at everybody, you need to buy right now. Everybody's situation is different. So if you're able to buy, it's not a bad time to buy because you can find desperate sellers out there. You can find people who need to get out of something or are willing to give up a good amount. And that's where, hey, it could be worth it. So everybody's situation is different. If you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, whatever it is, I'd love to talk with you. My information's right here. I would love to sit down with you, take you to coffee, find out what your situation is, see what's best for you. Again, I work real estate through relationships. It's about what is best for you, what is the best timing for you, because I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to serve you and do what's best for you. So I hope you'll reach out. Guys, you've been listening to Real Talk Real Estate. I'll catch you next time.